I just want to see it. And I want to see it done the way I did it, in the way that every other guy's got to do it. Because you can't cherry pick. But at the end of the day, too, I love it when I'm going to start seeing women.
You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, Episode 9.
Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast, helping you navigate transitions in your life, like entering and exiting college or the military, changing jobs or careers, and providing you with the coaching and mentorship needed to help you advance in your personal or professional life. Sometimes all you need is to change your point of view. Now, here's your host, Eddie Lazary.
Welcome to another episode of Change Your POV Podcast. Today is our engagement day. Every week, Bennett and I pick a topic. We toss that bad boy down range and we engage it from every angle. My weapon of choice, of course, is artillery, king of battle. Bennett, what's your preferred method of engagement? 9 mil?
Definitely not that screaming. I would say... yeah, like an AR or M4. Yeah.
Okay.
So 223, but in that weapons platform, because it's basically at this point it's like an extension of my body.
Right. Nice. I like it. So our topic today is very controversial. Let me speak correctly. Women in combat arms MOSs. Free to engage.
Jesus
Ready?
Lord. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know. I have no idea. So, if you're just tuning in and you're not keeping up with what's going on, a couple of weeks ago, the Department of Defense announced that they are opening up all combat arms MOS positions across all military branches to women. And we're going to discuss that. So, what's your initial thoughts there, Bennett, on this topic?
It's one of those things that as a father of 4 girls, I kind of look at it like I kind of have to look at it from an empowerment standpoint. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, good for them. If they can meet the standards, then by all means. But then I have to digress to my infantryman mind frame, and knowing for a fact that if we had women in my unit, mm-hmm. it would be very distracting on multiple levels. Just because of, I know for me as a father and a husband, it's one of those things where, it's, and that's unfair, not maybe to women. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. And a lot of men, not all men, but some men definitely have that Papa Bear mentality.
Sure.
But they also have that kind of their male soldiers as well, depending as a father. So it's such a slippery slope. I know I don't want my daughters serving in combat positions, just because I know what that entails. I don't really want sons, if I had those, to be out there either, mm-hmm. necessarily. So yeah, man, it's kind of tough. It's one of those things, like, my opinion, I guess, is that I don't particularly like it, mm-hmm. but I would accept it as long as the standards were adhered to. And there were no, and that's once again, here we go. This is already, women are walking into this at a disadvantage because their standards are already less. Because, like, take the PFT, the AFPFT, for example. Mm-hmm. It's different for men than it is for women. Right there at the very get-go, they're saying women are different. The military is saying, women, you're built differently than men. You're not as fast. You're not as strong on average, because there's plenty of women that are stronger, bigger, faster, smarter than men. There's many women
Mm-hmm.
that are, but you take the biggest, strongest, fastest man against the biggest, strongest, fastest woman, and there's not even a competition. Unfortunately, and that's how it is. That's nature. That's biology. Um, and at the end of the day, it kind of reigns true on average across the entire gender of male and female.
This isn't a new thing. I did a little research on this topic before our call just to kind of get a sense for kind of the rabbit trail we were going to go down, and learned that women never officially served in the U.S. military until 1901 and 1908. And that was with the Army and Navy Corps, Navy Nurse Corps. Prior to that, women served with armed forces as contract or volunteer nurses, and that's it, like cooks and laundresses. And however, there were women back in the day that did disguise themselves as soldiers. Like, for example, during the American Revolution, a woman by the name of Deborah Sampson enlisted in the Continental Army as Robert Sirtliff and served as an enlisted soldier for approximately 1 year. Hundreds of women disguised themselves as men and served in both the Union and the Confederate armies during the Civil War. And those women, they concealed themselves. They were adhering to the same standards that all the men were of the time. So it goes back. I mean, there's a lot of history on this.
And I can see that. But what were the standards back then?
Well, yeah.
I mean, we march, we get in a line, and then we shoot at each other, which mentally it's absolutely insanity.
Mm-hmm.
But physically, I mean, also the rifles are pretty damn heavy. So, I mean, I get it. I'm not saying women can't fight in combat because they do now.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But I just don't see, if my big ass goes down. I've met maybe 2 women in my whole life that could drag my ass off a battlefield, especially with 100 pounds of gear on. You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally get it. But at the same time, I served 10 years in the Army, and I can't recall a single time where I had to drag any one person anywhere.
See, there you go. So
right?
It's so hypothetical. It's like,
well, that's the argument that people make. They're like, oh, that woman's not strong enough. They can't carry a man. That silhouette image of wounded warrior.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. That's the infamous symbol that somebody's. I love that image, but at the end, I mean, let's be honest.
At the end of the day, who's doing that? I mean, did a lot of people do that?
No, I mean, I carried a lot of wounded off the battlefield, but it's typically like, 3 or 4 guys grabbing somebody
on a litter.
On a litter.
Not to say nobody's ever fireman carried a guy off the battlefield. Of course. Oh,
sure, right.
But it's like one of those things. It's such a hot topic. Like, man,
Well, that's why we're talking about it. So I found out, according to History and Collections, Women in Military Services for America Memorial Foundation, that there was and I didn't know this, the research is still out, but right now, as of today, they believe that there was approximately 359 servicewomen died during World War I. However, the vast majority of them were from influenza and sickness, illness, and accidents. Approximately 543 military women died in the line of duty during World War II, including 16 from enemy fire, and 17 military nurses died during the Korean War, and then 8 military women died while serving in Vietnam. However, the Army Times has that number at 16. Mm-hmm. And 16 died during Operation Desert Storm. So obviously there was a lot in World War I, World War II, but then again, look at the total number of people that served during that time, a hell of a lot more. What would you venture to guess the number of women that died in Iraq and Afghanistan to be?
Somewhere, I'd say, let's give it 500.
The Daily Beast has it at 200, around 200. 200 women died, and of course they're not all done. They were not all due to enemy conflict. There were some
Right,
accidents
of
and some
course.
other things. But so women in combat MOSs. So let's be honest. Over a decade now since we've been fighting in conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places around the world, women, whether they were in an actual combat arms MOS position or not, were all essentially fighting in a combat arms type of situation.
Absolutely.
Right?
I would absolutely agree with that.
And you don't even know this, and many of the listeners don't know this, but I picked this topic first to kick around the campfire because this very topic was essentially the inspiration for the name of this show, Change Your POV. And let me explain. I was a very hard-headed, non-commissioned officer, combat arms, yada, 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 and we were getting our orders to deploy to Iraq, and we heard that there was going to be some women that were going to be attached to our troop for the entire year of deployment. Now, I was very unhappy about that, and it made sense why, because they said it was basically because part of our role as the brigade reconnaissance troop, brigade QRF, we were doing a lot of cordon and searches, we were doing snap checkpoints, and so what we wanted to do is we wanted to keep up public relations and be respectful to their culture. And as you know, in that culture, men don't handle, touch, or really talk to the women and the children. And so we had two women
I guess
soldiers.
that depends on how they're doing it. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So we had two women attached to our brigade, or to our troop, for the sole purpose, really, of providing that service, I guess, for lack of a better term, when we went out and did, house searches or entries or any type of interrogation or searching. So the women's
when there's women around.
Right,
Gotcha.
right, exactly. And so that's why. So we had one specialist. Her MOS, she was a medic, not a combat medic, because women weren't allowed to be combat
Right.
medics, but she was a medic. And then we had another sergeant, and she was a fueler. So we had a fueler and a medic that were attached to our unit. And of course, like the rest of us, well, other than the medic, she actually did her job, but the rest of us kind of were tasked to do other things, non-MOS related. I was our field artilleryman. My job in the Army was to call for indirect fire and close with and engage the enemy. We did that, but not with artillery. And
right.
so I was very, very upset. I was very hostile towards that idea. I understood why we had to do it, but I was not happy about it. And I just didn't think, and we had a couple of other male medics that were with us as well, because we traveled in 3 truck sections. We had, essentially 2, 4, about 8 sections that we would rotate out on the route. And of course we had to go out with a medic at all times. So that female medic got rotated around to the different sections as they were going out. And initially during our initial deployment, everybody was really kind of not happy when they got told that they were going to take the female medic out on the route, because I was a senior squad leader, I was the lead truck, and I was responsible for not only my 3 truck section, but I was responsible for the other 2 trucks as well. So that's 9 men that I'm responsible for as a senior squad leader. So ultimately, this female medic's ability to perform her job under fire in combat situations was partly my responsibility as well, and I was not happy about it. And long story short, by the time that deployment was over, and she was small, she was short, she was small, she wasn't, the kind of person that would be, lugging 200 guys around. But then again, she never had to do that. But let me tell you, when it came to providing the level of service of caring for the wounded and the injured, and knowledgeable and calm under fire, I mean, she was all of that and then some. Totally impressed me. And towards the end of the deployment, there were sections that would actually fight for her to come out with them when they ran the sections, because she was just that good at her job, and so hence I started to think about different things in my life that just I went into. I thought of something one way, and then something just happened, a circumstance or an event happened that completely flipped my perspective and the way I believed or perceived something to be, which is really where I came up with the name Change Your Point of View. That alone allowed me to start looking at things differently. And so from that point forward, as I was faced with things throughout life, I would, at face value, I would say, I wonder if I were to observe this from a different perspective, if I would still believe it the same way. And so instead of just being hard headed like I used to be and just taking my initial gut or something at face value, I would actively pursue a way to perceive it or look at it from a different angle, and to see if I would come up with the same conclusion. And oftentimes I wouldn't. So this is a very sensitive topic to me because I've lived it firsthand, and it's a very pivotal moment. And there's certain times in your life where just certain things happen that you can just think back on and think, yeah, that was a point in my life where I pivoted. Well, that having that female combat, I'll call her a combat medic, um, pivoted that period in my life. And so I was looking at that, right? So women in combat, more than 9,000 female troops have earned their combat action badge during the modern combat operations, including Iraq and Afghanistan. So call it what it is. We're just now, quote unquote, opening up the doors to women filling these billets, but they've been filling the billets for over 10 years now.
Right. And I understand that. And as you so eloquently said, changing your POV, I am not the same guy that was an infantryman in the Army and the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
As people like to call it, that's the kinder, gentler me now. Because I'm kind of in that woo-woo-y kind of work now, like social worker type, stuff
Mm-hmm.
where I literally every day I'm helping veterans, homeless veterans, veterans that need food, veterans that need this, that, and the other thing. I'm kind of the catch-all guy who helps take care of that. I don't judge them. I don't do any of that stuff. Okay. So it's definitely changed the way that I view everything. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And being the father of 4 daughters. So at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, is do I want my daughters to be infantry? I do not.
Right.
But I also defer to them to make that decision on their own. I will give them my opinion, which is what I would give to a son. Man, you don't want to do that. I did that. Trust me. You don't want to be that guy. Go to college, fly airplanes, become a commo guy or something that you'll be able to get out and make a lot of money or have a trade. Because right. I mean, yeah, I get out but technically, do we have a trade? Not so much. Not that you need it, but it's also just, you everyone knows what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's kind of, I just defer to, if the women can do it, by all means, have at it.
So you're talking physics. So when you say,
no, I don't care. I don't care anyway. I don't care.
Oh,
if they want to do it and they
yeah.
can pass, they can make it through school, they can go to, make it through SOI, make it through all of it, then by all means, let them serve. If they want to be an infantry woman, then by all means, at the end of the day, it's way above my pay grade to, yes, I have that opinion, but at the end of the day, I'm also a realist. It's gonna happen sooner or later. I mean, there are other countries that have set this up already that do have women that serve in the infantry. Um, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can, I'm sure that you can recite verse after verse of women and their role in combat over the ages.
Sure.
Look at Joan of Arc. Look at people like that, back in the day, that, especially like Viking women, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
by all means, it's everyone is different. And I am of the opinion I don't really like it because it's just me. But I'm also man enough to be like, well, I don't have all the answers.
Right.
So I defer to choice. So if women want to serve in the infantry and they want to go there and they want to try, by all means, allow it. That's fine.
So if women, so now let's look at the other side of the coin here. So if women now want to serve in combat arms and now they have a means to do so, then shouldn't that also mean that women that do not want to fight in combat arms should also have that privilege? Right? I mean, look at all the women that have basically been thrown into these combat scenarios over the last 12 years, right?
Right.
And we're talking hundreds of them dying. And none of them at the time were in any combat arms
Well, but
MOS.
it's
No,
but
I'm
it's
not.
it's no different than any man that's not in a combat arms MOS. How many of them have died?
That's true. That's
How
true.
many
I'm
how many
not, but
cooks were out on,
all of them.
rolling? Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah, all
saying?
of them.
So
Yeah,
rolling
yeah.
from fob to fob, dropping off chow or doing whatever. This is the first conflict that really we've been in that was more, other than the first Gulf War. This is very vehicular.
Right.
There's not a lot of other. I mean, there is in Afghanistan with climbing, you know, very rocky terrain,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of patrolling going on foot. Um, but you're not trouncing through the jungles. You know what I mean? It's not Vietnam.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to say. Yes, women have been in. It's not. It's kind of the full breadth of combat. Again, um, it's one thing to patrol. I don't know how to explain it. It's just not the same type of warfare that a lot, like for me, what I was trained up doing in the 90s, was all about. Our main enemy was Spetsnaz.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're going down range and you're qualifying at the rifle range and you're shooting Ivan, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
as a reconnaissance marine, on any given moment, I mean, and this is what I pose to people that have this opinion that women should be allowed. I think they should be allowed as long as they can meet the standards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, if, take it 1994, rolling through Camp Lejeune, doing training operations, running Op 4 for whatever unit. Okay, I've
Mm-hmm.
got 100-pound pack on my back. It's every bit of 100 pounds, with every ounce of food, clothing, everything that I need for 10 days. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
ammo, all of it for 10 days, and I had to carry it patrolling everywhere. It's not like we left it at a fob
Right.
or left it on a vehicle and went out. Okay. It was 20, we would move probably 8 hours a day. And I had a 100-pound pack on my back for 8 hours. Plus, I was carrying an M60. So, all of that. Now, I don't know very many women that could do that through the terrain that we were doing it through. Now, I'm sure there are. But once again, if they can, by all means, let them. But
So you're talking standardization, right? We're talking so you already mentioned the APFT, and I'm sure all the other branches have
well,
a
unfortunately,
a
I think
fit.
that is what it is. That's not going to change.
Well, but it should,
In
shouldn't it?
essence, I mean, if it's equal, it should be equal.
Well, but let's see how far equal goes though, right? So
Right.
let's talk about equal basic training. Should men and women combat arms go through basic training together?
Oh, of course they would have to.
Well, yeah. What about living in
Well, in
different
the
barracks?
Marine Corps right now, they wouldn't though, because the Marine
Well,
Corps is segregated.
well, what if you're going to open up combat arms to women? Then you need to integrate women into basic training.
Right. Oh, I agree. I don't
Not just
disagree.
I'm not
Completely
talking
agree.
about marching together. They need to be living in the same barracks. They need to be taking
But it's like
showers with each
this is
other.
like space Starship Troopers we're talking about.
Yeah, it has to be.
I mean,
It has to be because let me ask you this: you've been out in the
and
field.
I would agree with you on that, but I can tell you, and this is one of the biggest complaints. America is not ready for that. People aren't ready
Well,
for it. People aren't ready for it.
they have to be.
Well, of course they have to be, but they're not.
But here's the thing: you can't ask for equality and then cherry pick what you want to be equal on.
Right. And oh,
You
I
take
agree. It's get out there
you take a
and do, you're expected. I mean, like again, here we go. Reconnaissance in the Marines. We're expected to do 20 dead hang pull-ups. That was the expectation. It might not have been the what you had to do per regs, but the
Yep,
expectation was that you could do 20 dead hang pull-ups.
yep,
Really? You know what I'm saying?
yep.
No kipping, no, dead hang
Hmm.
up, down, extended arms up, and then down and then up.
Right.
That's it. There wasn't any of this, chin over the bar hanging or, I don't even remember what they do. And, I mean, there wasn't like, 17 push ups and that's, you max out at 28 push ups or whatever.
Yeah.
No, you do 80 push-ups to max.
So let's talk about. All right. So that's
So that's PFT stuff.
yeah. So what?
But
I know you're infantry, right? But I'm sure there was unique things about the. So taking a tanker for example, right? Yeah, you now have a woman as a tanker. Well, you will in the future. You'll have women tankers.
mhm,
They'll be in the tank, buttoned up, out in some battle space somewhere. Where do male tankers today go to the
yeah,
bathroom? Any idea?
in a bottle.
In So where's the woman going to go?
Exactly. They're going to get one of those. You ever seen that commercial where they show the chick that gets up after the night? It's an Australian commercial. She gets
Yeah,
up and then all of a sudden the dude rolls over and looks at her and she's pissing standing up because
yeah.
she's got that whatever the hell they call it. I don't know that thing. There you go, man. That's what you got to get. It's got a cup over. It's cupping over the genitalia, and they're letting it rip. That's
I
what other
mean,
choice do you have?
that's
Or
right.
you wear Depends, or you pop a squat somewhere. That's it.
It's funny, but this is reality. People don't understand that in the military, especially in combat,
Yeah,
you have to do. I mean, there is no chivalry, there is no
no,
modesty, there is no. You do. How many times did you stand there butt naked and have your battle buddy hold a bottle of water over your head so you could take a bitch bath?
dude. More times than I can count.
Right,
Yeah.
because
I
that's
mean,
the way you
yeah,
did it.
that's the way it's done. And also the other thing is all right. So what you've got here too is also a loss of freedom, I guess you could
Yeah.
say, because now, yes, are there women that swear like sailors? Yes. Is there this, that, and the other thing? Yes. But you lose a sense of camaraderie and esprit de corps and battlefield or what do they call it? Unit cohesion
Hmm.
because all of a sudden now we have to watch what we're saying around everybody. Not that a lot of women can't handle it, but it's always in the back of your mind. Um, I mean, because another dude just got an issue with your language, you're like, yeah, go fuck yourself. But you're
Hmm.
gonna. I mean, for me at least, that's how I was raised. Is that I don't swear necessarily at women. I might swear around them. I might do this and that, but I'm not going to tell them that. You know what I mean? It's just a
Yeah.
different. There's a difference in whatever. Younger guys, I don't think they have the same respect. But I was brought up with a respect for women.
Mm-hmm.
In general, because I was raised by a single mother, and you know, again, I have 4 daughters,
Right.
so I want people to respect, my wife and my kids and my mother and all that stuff too. Um, you know, and I freaking try, and I try hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, that man bleeds through, and that's kind of an issue sometimes. I could just see, and I know men, and now it could be completely unfounded, but until we do it, we will never know.
Right.
So it's
I,
it's one of those things. Like, you know what? I'm anxious to see the experiment. I'm anxious to see what's going to happen, and I'm anxious to see how many women actually want it. Like,
right.
once they're there,
Mm-hmm.
do they really want it? I mean, I've read a lot of articles in the past, few weeks from Marines and from soldiers, all female, that are like, yeah, I don't want nothing to do with that infantry shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You know what I would see the biggest challenge if I were back in the Army, senior squad leader, and combat arms, and I've got men and women right under my charge, and we're out in the battle space somewhere. Well, you know what happens? Men and women, they get together, they'll
Oh, dude, you'd have
do a
you'd
little.
have pregnant chicks everywhere.
No, but how do you get the fighting man's mind to stay on the task at hand and not wander down the road of all of the, right? Because I mean, you know how
Oh
it
yeah,
is.
and it's like literally no. I just don't see it. I mean, it's like I guess you could look at it this way. The American male, I feel, is not evolved enough
I agree with that.
to
I
deal
totally
with it.
agree with that.
To deal
No,
with
I
it.
agree. I don't think it's people think that it's about a woman in this situation, and what they're failing to realize is there's the other 50% of the equation, and
And
that's
that's
the
the
men.
men, and the
That's the
men,
men.
and if you've got, I mean, dude, I'm telling you, I mean, military sexual trauma is already rampant. I see it every day,
Yeah.
um, for men and for women.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen when you put women into the, again, it's not about the woman, it's about
Right.
the animals that you're putting them in there with.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these guys, yes, you might have incredibly intelligent, um, very good Marines and soldiers in the infantry, but there's still part of them that's a freaking animal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, they're trained killers, and
What?
I just don't. It's not conducive. It's just not conducive for women to be exposed to that or in it. And again, I try to be open-minded about it, but I really won't be surprised when I say I told you so.
So, what do you feel about women's ability to lead in combat other men?
Well, I mean, once again, it comes down to respect.
But do you think women could lead combat men in a combat
If
situation?
they're a good leader, absolutely. Why couldn't they?
So I looked up, and military.com had an article, a pretty interesting one, about Captain Kelly McCoy, a West Point graduate, earned the Bronze Star with a V device. When, for those of you at home, V is for valor. Device for her actions on September 18th, 2003, when she led 11 male paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division in breaking up an enemy ambush between Fallujah and Ramadi in Iraq's Abnar province. Her citation said that Captain McCoy willingly and repeatedly took action to gather up her soldiers under enemy fire and direct fire at the enemy. Her actions inspired her men to accomplish the mission and save the lives of her fellow soldiers.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I mean, at the end of the day, leadership is leadership. It is, and I firmly believe in that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've had female bosses that were the best bosses I ever had because they led from the front, whether or not it wasn't in combat, but it was in business and whatnot, and they were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, it's one of those things. I mean, I just want to see it in practice. You know
Right.
what I mean? And
Yep.
I, again, my personal opinion is I don't like it. And I can give you reason after reason after reason, whether you feel they're valid or not. They're America. Whether you feel they're valid or not is beside the point because they're my opinion, and it's my right to have that.
So does that make you non-supportive or chauvinistic?
No, not at all.
No.
Because I do support it. In the aspect of me just saying that I don't agree with it doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
I by all means I'm not going to stand out there and hold, a protest because I don't
Right.
want it to happen. I say go forth and conquer if you
You
can.
s- you support it, but you don't personally agree with it.
Right. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it going very far. You may have those women that are in there doing it, but I mean, you know what? I can tell you one MOS that may that certain aspects of the MOS women would probably be pretty freaking awesome, and that's as a sniper.
Mm.
Because in theory, uh, women on average, I think, are better shots than men.
Right.
Um, Again, though, I think in limited again. See, I say that again, but it's all because of what I know from my military career, and a lot of that was, it's humping long distances with heavy stuff and crawling through mud and shit and everything else. And I'm not saying women can't do that, but again, it's kind of me and my ignorance because I've never seen it. Partially
Yep.
because I never had to serve that type of mission with women. And I mean, and I freely admit I feign ignorance on a lot of it. I just know
Mm-hmm.
that I don't see, like, I take my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, for instance, who says, by all means, she wants to be in the infantry. She wants to try. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I just don't see it because I know her. I've known her my entire life. I know her
Right.
mentality. I know her psyche. I know her physical ability. And I can tell you that the weakest guy that I had in the infantry, she's probably on par with him. So she may be able to get in it. I just don't know if she's would be in it. I think it would not be good unless something
Right.
drastically changed. But
Mm.
again, that's one woman.
Right. Right.
Um, and that's with me as her father as well. And I tell them that they can do anything they want to do, period.
Yep.
And I don't dissuade her. So if she ever heard me talk like this on the radio on this episode, she very well may be very pissed at me because I would never say it to her. Just because
Right.
I want to be that supportive dad.
Right.
Uh,
So I read
I mean,
a
here's what it comes down to. If women take the military as it is right now, and you all of a sudden tomorrow said, okay, you have 6 months to get in shape where women have to take the same PFT as men. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm even talking about giving them a grace period.
Sure.
6 months, and then every single recruit now has to pass this PFT to get in.
Yep. Yep.
How many women would even qualify to be in the military?
You mean in combat arms?
No,
Not.
in the military.
Oh, we're
if
talking
if if
about.
you
Oh, we're talking.
if you wanted to get equal, if you wanted to
Oh,
go
okay.
equal, if you wanted to go
Yeah.
equal across the board, if you said you have 6 months to prepare for and then complete a passing APFT as the same regulations as a man, how many women would even qualify to be in the military?
Probably not as many than there is
I'd
currently.
wonder.
But
I'd really wonder how many. You know,
But so I'm thinking in the interest of equality, if the military, I think the military would have to make the APFT equal. But I think instead of forcing women to raise their APFT level to that of a man, I think they will um, meet in the middle. I think the men's APFT would have to come down, and then the women's would have to come up, and they'd meet somewhere in the middle. Right?
yeah,
Right?
yeah, that's just horrible, though.
Right. But no, but that's what would it that is what it would take in order to drive true equality with regard to the APFT.
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
I mean, right now the push-up, I don't know about the Marine Corps, but in the Army, and I don't know about the other branches, but in the Army, the sit-ups is equal. Both men and women have the same min-max for all age groups. I don't know if it's always been that way, but it is right now. I looked it up this afternoon.
Where? In
The
in the
the
Army?
sit in the
Yeah,
Army,
yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean, the push-ups would have to equalize, and the run. Now the run is there's almost a 2 minute delta there between the men and the women,
Yeah.
which is 2 minutes. That doesn't seem like a long time, but
Oh, it's a long
it
freaking
is.
time. Yeah.
It is. So I read in the Huffington Post an article by Elena, and I'm going to butcher her last name, Vagianos. And the article is 27 candid concerns from Special Forces troops about women in combat. And I'm going to go through a couple here and just get your take on it. So the first comment, and I'm not going to read anybody's names, I'm just going to say it's an E5, said, what is the benefit of adding a female to the team? What am I going to gain by opening things to females that we don't have already? So what he's basically saying there is, I don't mind that women are going to come in, but what does it gain? What do we gain as a fighting force having females there, other than to show that we're in order to demonstrate equality? What benefit is there? What's your take on it?
I I don't see any.
Okay, and I think that's his point.
Yeah, I really don't, and unless you're talking about dealing with again, it's mission specific. But
Right.
as a team member of an A team, I see absolutely no advantage.
Yeah.
Zero.
So
But
the
I
other
see
guy,
I can pull out a lot of disadvantages.
the next one's from a E6 Special Forces said, I want to know the reason behind it that drives the process. If it is a capability gap, then what is it? If equality, then it's nonsense. Women are not created equal. I know badass women, but even they can't do it.
True.
So he's talking about, at the end of the day, men and women are not.
No.
They're not. I'm not talking from a women. Men and women
Well,
are not
I
created
love the
equal.
word equality. Okay. Or
Yes.
I love the word equal. When you're, how can you talk about equality when you're comparing apples and oranges? They're
Right.
two completely
Right.
separate entities. I mean, separate on more levels than you can even comprehend, right?
Right.
And then saying that you have to have equality. I mean, like here, I have an article. It's one of the best articles I've read by a Marine. Her name is Jude Eden. All right. Um, she served in the Marine Corps for 8 years, deployed to Fallujah, um, the whole gamut, right? And she has this great article, and she wrote, this is one of the most telling uh, paragraphs from it. Women are often great shooters, but cannot run in 50 to 80 pounds of gear as long, hard, or as fast as men. Military training is hard enough on men's body, it's harder on women's. And until women stop menstruating, there will always be an uphill battle for staying level and strong at all times. No one wants to talk about the fact that in the days before a woman's cycle, she loses half her strength, to say nothing of the emotional ups and downs that affect judgment. Now, men have that issue too.
Hmm.
But especially on a battlefield, if you're in the sauce and that woman is half as strong as she was 3 days ago, that could be a fucking problem.
Right.
All right. And
Right.
how would you like fighting with PMS symptoms while clearing a town or going through a firefight? Then there are the logistics of making all the accommodations for women in the field. And this is what we had talked about. From stopping the convoy to pee or because her cycle started to strip down to get hosed off after having having to go into combat with full mop gear when there's a biological threat. You know, and it just goes on and on and on. And this is coming from her, and she's saying, it's just like, uh, not even to talking about the relationships, which we kind of hit the wave tops on. But whether it's a consensual relationship, unwanted advances, or sexual assault, they all destroy unit cohesion.
Right.
So regardless of whether or not, again, it has nothing to do with the woman, but her presence brings out ugly. It's biological nature, man.
Right.
Again, they might as well be apes when they get to a certain point. You know what I mean? And that's the truth. No one is talking about the physical, or here's what it was. Oh yeah. No one's talking about the physical or emotional stuff that goes along with men and women together. A good relationship can foment jealousy, and the perception of favoritism. A relationship goes sour and suddenly one loses faith in the very person who may need to drag one off the field of battle. A sexual assault happens and a woman not only loses faith in her fellows, but may fear them. A vindictive man paints a woman as easy and she loses the respect of her peers. A vindictive woman wants to destroy a man's career with the false accusations. Yes, folks, this happens too. And it's poison to a unit. All this happens before the fighting even begins. How many women, let me ask you this, because I don't have the, well, I do. When I was in Bosnia, I knew of 3 women alone in the year, within the time that I was in Bosnia, I saw 3 women who had gotten pregnant and sent home. All within that deployment. And that was just in Bosnia.
Right.
So I just, yeah. You know what I mean? There's just so many things that they're just not advantageous. They're destructive. But again, there I go. I have to keep falling back on the thing is we're not going to know these things until we actually do it.
And to your last point, one of these comments in this Huffington Post is from an E7 Special Forces, and he says, if she gets pregnant, she'll leave the team. Men don't leave the team. What if the team sergeant is a woman or the medic? Whatever cohesiveness is gained in training is lost, especially if the woman is in a key leadership position.
Absolutely.
So he's not saying he disagrees with it. He's saying, hey, it's here's the possibility, because then you go down the road of, okay, do you force women to then take
birth control
when they're in combat? I mean, can you do that? I mean, how far? I mean, this is a slippery slope, and there's so many. It's more than just President Obama signing an act or a law or whatever that says, voila, women are now in combat arms. There are so many things to consider, so many avenues.
See, here's the other thing. I have never heard good reasons why. Other than equality. Other than that word equality.
Well, listen, but women have been basically fighting in combat positions since the beginning of Iraq and Afghanistan. 12 years?
Okay, so
and they've done well for themselves, and I served with 2 of them that were excellent, and they made our team complete in Iraq.
And that's great. But did they live with you in the same barracks? Did they shower with you?
No.
Did they, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
no, I get it.
They're part of the cohesive unit, but it's again, it's on a deployment. What's it going to be like in the rear? I don't know. You have mixed gender units all throughout the military as it
You
is. It's
do.
fine.
You do. And let
It's
me ask
fine.
you,
And you know what? Everything's great. So why would it be any different in the infantry?
but
This
how,
is what I'm saying is that at the end of the day, I want to see it in place. I want to see it work because again, I'm digressing to the point where I don't know. I know what my opinion is, but that doesn't mean
Mhm.
I'm right. I am one of these people and I'm one of these men that I don't stand by it with an iron fist and say women should not serve in the infantry because whatever. Because it's I'm like, you know what? Show me. Show me it
Yeah.
can work. Show me it
Yeah.
can happen.
I'm from a,
Show me it that you can do it. And if you can, by all means, that's fine. Because you know what? Me, I'm not in the military anymore, but when I was, it didn't affect me because I was able to look past the point when I had to work with women that they were women. They were soldiers or they were
yeah,
Marines. Now in the
right.
Marines I didn't have to deal with any of them. But in the army I did, you know? And I feel as though I'm evolved enough that I can look past it.
Hmm.
But on average, I just don't see it being. I guess what it comes down to for me, in my opinion, now that we really are just hitting this from all angles,
Yeah.
in my opinion, I guess it comes down to what is the advantage of it happening. And I see more disadvantages than I do advantages,
Yep.
mainly because of unit cohesion. And is that the women's fault? Not necessarily, but it is what it is. It's a reality. And until you make it not a reality, again, let's do it. See
Hmm.
how it works.
Yep.
See how it happens. Because
So
we had
my,
two girls, two women graduate Ranger School.
hmm
I've heard both good and bad things about that. I have friends that are down there, friends that were, friends of friends, and I've heard both sides of the story. Some things are good, some things are bad. Was it a farce? Was it not? And I have no idea because I wasn't there. But again, good for them.
hmm
Let's do this. I mean, if you want to, I think one of them had said that she might want to pursue going into special forces or something. By all means,
right.
go ahead, do it. But I have not to say that she can't, but I have seen some of the best men that I know not make it through SFAS.
Right.
I mean, some of the hardest men that I know.
Well, I mean, a lot of people think this is just a classic GI Jane, right?
Yeah,
And
and it's
eh,
not.
and it's just what's her name, the actress
Demi
there,
Moore.
Demi Moore, right? So it's just this just powering, woman moment, and she earns the respect and confidence of her entire team. And I mean, it's a good movie, don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, but that is not reality at all. I'm not saying that women couldn't do it. All I'm saying is the way that movie ended
I
up
mean, at
is
the end of the day, too, look at when the Master Chief got real on her.
oh
Like
yeah,
in
absolutely.
the
And
POW in
The
Sear
Sears
Park,
school, right? Yeah.
dudes were flipping out. You don't think that
Eh,
would happen?
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
All
I
right.
do.
So, do you think America's ready for POWs? Which I mean, Jesus, how many of it happens now? If women get taken hostage, and
Well, it
it
happened to
happened.
what
Exactly, it's happened
to
already.
yeah, it's
and
happened.
and now we're throwing them even. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's once again, it's we can beat this whole thing to death, but
So here's
it's
here's
just it's you're in a no win. You're in
well,
a no win
that's it.
situation, and at least we have the guts to freaking talk about it.
That's right. And that's what makes this an excellent engagement. So, my closing statements, then I'll let you have the last word. And that is here's my take. I served with women in a combat environment, and they proved themselves over and over again to the point where it changed my perspective. That said, it's not that I don't think women aren't ready for it. It's I don't think men are. What's your last words?
I have a tendency to agree with you because it's like I always tell my daughters: men are just stupid. At the end of the day, the way that they act around women, the way that they turn into little bumbling idiots for the most part, especially boys. When you're talking like 18, 19-year-old, well, you can call them men, but most of them nowadays act like boys. Uh, in the military, it might be a little different, but at the end of the day, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that there are women that by all means could prove themselves. I don't know about the physicality of parts of it. I just don't see it. Not on a extended time frame where you're literally talking about, what we do for, 8, 10 years of our career, and a woman's body being able to handle that. But again, prove me wrong. I want them to prove me wrong, because I want I want that type of ability and freedom for my kids. Not that I agree with them doing it again, but I'm not going to tell them that, because if that's what they want to do, by all means, it's kind of like I look at a lot of these guys that are like, Johnny wants to be a rock star. Well, Sally wants to be an infantryman. Make it happen.
That's right. I mean, there's a lot of equality going around these days. I mean, this year alone, we saw the first female NFL ref, right?
Yep.
We've got our first female NASCAR driver, Danica Patrick. I mean, there's definitely doors of opportunity and call it equality, whatever you want, that are opening all over the place.
And I do see that if a woman wants it bad enough, I think that she could probably do it.
Yeah.
I agree. But I say now, if you have any inkling of doing this, you better train. And you better train hard, and you better wipe your mind of a lot of stuff and just be able to handle the bullshit, because it's going to be so hard on your psyche, because guess what? Unfortunately, you're going to have to prove yourself every minute of every day. That's it. So I'm not saying women can't do it. I hope that they can at the end of the day. But the bottom line is, it's going to be rough, and it's going to be a rough road for the first one that actually does it and makes it. But I also just want to see how the military is going to react to the standards.
Oh, sure.
That's a lot of it, because as soon as they lower the standards, you've blown up. You might as well throw hand grenades onto unit cohesion, because you're going to have a mass exodus of men, because they're going to be pissed. Because equality means equality, not, whatever. Again, you can't cherry pick it.
Well, thanks, Bennett. This has been an awesome combat dialogue engagement for our first go around discussing combat. We're discussing women in combat arms, MOSs. So I would love to hear what you have to say about the topic. It's going
to be a lot of pissed off people. So it's going to be.
No, seriously, head on over to changeyourpov.com/episode 9. Leave us a comment. I would love to hear what your guys' take is on it. And I really look forward to the engagement. Stop on over, check it out, see what everybody's saying about it. And if we get enough interest in this sometime down the road, maybe we'll have a follow-up topic about this. But until next time, thanks, Bennett. Appreciate everything. And we will see you on the next weekly engagement.
Thanks for listening to Change Your POV podcast with Eddie Lazary. Check out more content by going to changeyourpov.com. And remember, your ability and willingness to change your point of view will open doors of opportunity.
Because they didn't even think about the draft. How many freaking of them do you think thought about the draft?
Well, we didn't even talk about that.
No, we didn't. But how many do you think did? You know what I mean?
Probably none of them.
So
I think women should have to be forced to sign up for the draft when they turn 18.
Yep.
Right? I mean, come on now. Equality is equality is equality. You cannot say, well, we're only equal until this.